And after weeks of relief, diesel prices appear to be on the rise again, partly in response to the volatility in the energy market over concerns about supply from Europe and unstable foreign exchange rates. For many businesses, sustaining production for the Yuletide season might not be business as usual, especially at a time when inflation has eroded consumers' purchasing power and inventory of unsold goods continue to rise. Demand for diesel is consistently strong because the fuel is used across the world for freight transport. According to analysts, increased fuel, that is, diesel imports by Europe from the US and China, will reduce exports to South America and Africa. Joining us to make sense of this is Sumbo Badijoko, public affairs analyst. He joins us virtually. Hello, good to have you join us today.
Hello, good morning. It's good to be here again.
All right, as always. Well, in Nigeria now, diesel has risen from as low as 300 naira per litre earlier in the year to as high as 900 naira per litre. And according to industry experts, these high prices are set to persist or even worsen as diesel inventories in key hubs have fallen to levels not seen in 40 years. Talk to us. How does this make you feel? What are your thoughts?
It's a very terrible and pathetic situation that we have found ourselves in Nigeria now, because and it's all a product of inactions of the government over the years. As an oil producing nation, we are not supposed to be importing refined petroleum products, but unfortunately we are importing refined petroleum products, and that is the reason why we are in this mess. Had it been we are not importing, whatever happens in the global market will be to our advantage. But because we also import refined petroleum products, whatever happens in the global market will definitely have an impact on our own local economy as well as our petroleum industry in Nigeria. So that's why we are having this crisis within the oil sector, being a spillover effect of the global crisis that's
All right. Well, quickly now, let's just look at the impact of the current exchange rates in the parallel market. We see dollar exchanging as high as over 800 naira to the dollar. What is the impact of this on diesel importers and traders?
The impact is because diesel has been deregulated, fully deregulated for the past 10 or 15 years or thereabouts. And because of this full deregulation, there is not going to be any form of subsidized forex for the importation of diesel. It means the importers will have to source for the forex whichever way they can, and that is why they go to the parallel markets. And in the parallel market, they are going to be competing with other group of people that also need forex for some other uses, and that is what. And of course, we know there is heavy racketeering going on in that sector. The current proposed redesign of the naira by the CBN has prompted those who have stashed the naira in their homes to now begin to exchange naira to foreign currency. So this has increased the demand for forex in the parallel market and, of course, jacking up the price. So because the price of the value of dollar to naira is going up, it's going to affect the landing cost of the diesel. Since there is no subsidy on it, whatever value it comes in with is what would
All right. If I hear you correctly, you're talking about how that, well, this particular industry is no longer subsidized, or let's say this particular product is no longer subsidized. And what that means is that when the exchange rate keeps going haywire, it keeps affecting the landing cost and some other things. And at the end of the day, even the consumers will also feel the impact or the brunt of that. Please go ahead. You can continue from where you stopped earlier, sir.
Yeah, as I said, the market is regulated, and of course, there is no subsidized forex for the importation of diesel, meaning that whatever is the landing cost is what will determine the local price. And because it's deregulated, the price is not determined by the regulatory agency. And of course, the marketers will be the one to determine whichever price that is suitable and favorable to them. Now, diesel is one thing that connects to every other sector. It powers the industry, it involves in logistics, it's involved in communication, and that's why every other sector would now be affected. There are so many industries that are being powered by diesel because the regular power electricity is not available. And where it is available, it is epileptic. So it's not really reliable to that extent. So without good access to power, there would not be the producer will have to look for alternative source, and that diesel has been the major alternative source of energy.
All right, Mr. Badijoko, we'll come to how this impacts, or the impact of this on manufacturers and producers. But then, you talked about the fact that there is no subsidy for exchange rate, for diesel importers. Now, is it about time the CBN started working on creating a window for them, or we don't have to do that since it's a deregulated sector?
It's a problem that will continue in as much as we are still importing the product. The CBN can do little, even if they start giving them, the Nigerian factor will still set in. We don't have a sole importer. We have several of them. And if some get and the others do not get, there will still be crisis within the market. The way forward is to have refining capacity. And as at the last report, Dangote refinery is about 97% completed now. If that information is true, it means in the next 5 months we should be out of this mess.
All right. Well, the rise in energy prices has implications for, the cost of locally manufactured goods and also cost of services. Manufacturers have, started working on this. What they are doing now is cost cutting, product selection, and prioritization, and also they are expanding investment in the development and production of raw materials locally. Now, while this might be seen as laudable, I'd like us to take a look at some of the impacts. For example, when they talk about cost cutting, what exactly are they talking about? How can that be achieved without maybe tampering with, the human resources, maybe having to lay some persons off or tampering with the quality of products?
They may not echo it loudly, but definitely it will affect some personnel costs. Because when you say cut costs, it means you're bringing down the overhead. It means you have to reduce the cost of production in whichever way we can. Part of way to reduce this is looking at the source of raw material. If you can source it locally, you go for local alternative. You can streamline the hours of production so that you consume less of diesel. You can also bring in the use of technology, machine that would produce faster than the human being. So in all, there is no way that some job loss will not occur. It's just that they deliberately there are silence on it due to the unemployment figure that we already have, which is alarming. But there's no way you will bring down cost of production in manufacturing sector without looking in the direction of course, reduction in the personnel, because they also draw salaries and wages at the end of the month, and reduction in that is also going to be part of. Some will go into casualization rather than recruiting permanent staff. They go for contract staff specifically for production purpose, and once the warehouses are filled up, they lay them off for the time being and they invite them back again. So they would not go for full staff but casualization to accelerate production and lay off the staff, and the staff that they can maintain will be kept in the organization, and of course those ones will just be doing maintenance services.
What will be the implication of this really, if that's the route many of them are going? What will be the implication of that? Because for what you said, I'm looking at underemployment already, and I'm wondering what happens to these people who have been laid off. Are there ready industries to absorb them?
On the hunt for a government job and other form of secured form of employment. That is on the negative side. On the positive side, if they are paid off, some may now begin to look inward at what they could do by themselves. It means there may be a likely slight increase in the SMEs, because some will go into investing in their own skills and starting up on their own. So that is a two-way thing, but of course people will look at the negative side because of the other factors that would have to be in place for a private establishment to thrive.
All right. Now, when they say local manufacturing of raw materials, does that speak to import substitution? If you can hear me, Mr. Badijoko, I was asking, some of the manufacturers are trying to address this issue by cost cutting and some other things which you have mentioned earlier. And another thing they are doing is local manufacturing of raw materials. And I'm asking if that actually speaks to import substitution. If you can hear me, please.
Can you go back on that question? There was a skip at some, so I didn't get the full question.
Okay, I was asking if local manufacturing of raw materials speak to import substitution. Are they the same thing?
Yes, it is, because when you don't import, it means you're sourcing locally. The main problem that we're having with local raw materials are, one, we do not have sufficient produce, raw materials enough. Then these are linked to the insecurity in some of the agricultural based area. And the other problem is the problem of storage. We do not have enough storage facility to preserve these things to the time when they are going to be needed, or from the time when they are manufactured, when they are produced, to the time when they would be needed. So these are two major issues. And the other one will be the problem of logistics, because the roads are not really in good condition. We have a deficient rail system, rail transport system, which will reduce the cost a little bit. And of course, the insecurity situation that we have in these are factors that are militating against the local sourcing of raw materials. If this can be removed, of course, it's going to boost the primary or the extractive industry within the nation, and of course, create some another line of job around that sector, which is going to be to our advantage. So the government will really need to work harder to ensure that all these loopholes or bottlenecks are removed for every sector to be to operate in Fuji.
All right. Well, manufacturers saw their expenses on alternative energy sources rise by 50.6%, and that was in the first half of this year compared to the same period last year. Now, how can heavy diesel users hedge against this?
Well, it's going to be a trying time for them. There's no doubt about that. They'll have to look inward. Part of what they will do has already been mentioned. They will have to look at how they will maximize the little resources they have to be able to get the full potentials. So that's what they will do, and of course they will have to negotiate more with the government agencies to really see if there could be a kind of incentive coming from that end to ensure that the pressure is not too much on them. But all this is what we'll have to deal with, in as much as we are still importing the petroleum products from in Nigeria.
All right. Well, some analysts have actually advised heavy diesel users to either buy, they should buy in large quantities, store a lot, buy financial hedges on the market, or just switch to natural gas products like the CNG, LNG, or even the LPG. How much of a solution do you think this is?
It's still, it's not really the way to go. If they're going to buy in large quantity, that means they will have to look for storage facilities that they would have to keep the surplus in, and that comes with its own risk. We are in a dry season. Any little spark can lead to fire outbreak, and when you have a fire outbreak close to a place where a large amount.
Mr. Badijoko, if you can hear me, do go ahead, please. All right, Mr. Badijoko right there talking about how some of these marketers or some of these manufacturers can hedge against, some of these issues, basically the high price of diesel. And for him, he doesn't totally believe that storing large quantities is actually the way to go, because, we know the season we are in and we know what can happen as a result of that. If you can hear me, do go ahead, please.
Yeah, if you can hear me, I was saying that because the very volatile period to be petroleum products, diesel, for instance, in some areas, because any little spark can lead to disaster, and when you have that, it's going to cause some problem. And if they are going to convert to gas, That means they have to first install facilities that can accommodate. They may not have equipment that are powered by gas. That means they have to do an overhaul, turnaround maintenance or an overhauling of the entire machinery to be able to work on the ones that are compatible to gasoline. So these are things that
Hi, Mr. Badijoko, we are having challenge hearing you. If you can hear me now, I'd like you to just wrap up on that note so we'll close the show.
I was saying that there's no way they will not.
All right, I guess that's connection issue. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Sumbo Badijoko, Public Affairs Analyst. Stay with us. This is Business Breakfast. All right, and we still have Sumbo Badijoko right here with us. Thanks for joining us again, Sumbo.
Thank you for having me.
All right, very quickly, let's close with this particular one now. According to the Director General of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, that's MAN, or that's Shegun Ajayi Kadir, manufacturers are carrying out further investments in the electricity value chain, and they are committing to adding 10,000 megawatts to the current electricity distributed in the country. What are your thoughts, and how far can this take us?
It's a welcome development. In fact, even the direction to go. I've always maintained that the grid system that we are using is not really good for industrialization. And if the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is coming to boost the distribution by 10,000 megawatts, it's going to work on one condition, and that is to remove the legislative bottleneck, the legislative barrier on power distribution and transmission in the nation. Because as we speak, electricity is still on the exclusive list, meaning the federal government is the only one that can really act upon it, and it's an exclusive affair. So for that to be effective, the grid will need to be decentralized. The industrial area would need to have their own concentrated grid, not that the same grid will serve both the industries and the residential area. That's one of the problems that we are having, and that is why there is problem in the area of distribution, which is affecting the manufacturing industry. If that aspect can be worked upon, then the innovation being brought in by MAN is going to be very effective, and it's the way forward.
Well, talking about power decentralization, I think that's in the works now. We know that the National Assembly is actually working hard on something like that. But quickly, in closing, let's have your final thought, basically.
Well, I would want to help. What is it called? I want to end on this optimistic note that, well, there are measures being put in place that the coming year is going to be good if there are no, God forbid, any form of emergency or unforeseen circumstance. Because with the innovation being brought by the Manufacturers Association, with Dangote coming on board, with Port Harcourt Refinery coming on board, the petroleum or diesel crisis will go down. And with Siemens also helping in the transmission and the reworking of the grid, there will be improved in the real power, the power sector. So when these are in place, of course, we will have a very robust manufacturing industrialization process going on, and of course that would spill out on our GDP, which is something that the nation will be really in need of come next year.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on the show today.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
All right. We've been speaking with Sumbo Badijoko, Public Affairs Analyst. Well, telcos as well as deposit money banks, DMBs, will now be saddled with responsibility to withhold value-added tax, VAT, charged on all taxable supplies made to them, which will subsequently be remitted to the federal government account. We'll be right back to talk about this. Stay with us.